We have lots to discuss here in today's video, including all kinds of NHL offseason trade and UFA speculation. On the trade front, we're looking at a potential deal between the Vegas Golden Knights and the Montreal Canadiens. We also have some trade rumors focusing on teams like the Buffalo Sabres, as well as the Dallas Stars, as well as some UFA talk around Mitch Marner of the Toronto Maple Leafs. Where might he end up? We have the latest intel on that situation. Plus, Claude Giroux, veteran in Ottawa, is he returning to the Sens, or will he hit the market? We'll discuss the latest that we've learned on that situation. Plus, we have a signing in Calgary. We're going to recap last night's embarrassing loss for the Edmonton Oilers in Game 3 of the Stanley Cup Final. We have a fine in player safety on that game. Plus, we have a big update regarding the 2018 World Junior Championship trial where 5 players are facing assault charges. We'll discuss all that and more coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have lots to discuss here in today's video. Let's start by recapping last night's big game in the Stanley Cup Final. Game 3, the Panthers now have a 2-1 series lead. The Oilers won Game 1, but then the Panthers have taken the next 2. Of course, Game 2 was a really close double overtime win, but Game 3 was anything but close. Brad Marchand got a pretty early goal. The Panthers came out strong. Actually, the Oilers really, to be honest, came out strong as well. The first couple of shifts for Edmonton, they had really good chances, and they had really good ozone pressure. Florida, though, matched that, and within a short time, Marchand got an early goal. And for the longest time, it was 1-0 Florida, and Edmonton was having a tough time getting to their game. There was a lot of penalties in the first period. By the end of the first period, each team had taken 4 penalties. A lot of them were, some were pretty, legit penalties. One was a high stick where he got him like in the visor, that was a legit call. There was a couple that were kind of borderline. They were really calling everything. Eventually, they started calling a lot of retaliation. There was getting a lot of scrums. They were pulling one player out. That happened quite a bit. But over time, the Panther power play took advantage. It was effective, and it just kept piling up the lead. And, before you know it, later in the period, we had like a 2-0 Florida lead. Corey Perry responds for Edmonton, makes it 2-1. But then the next thing you know, early in the second, it's 3-1, it's 4-1. And then it just starts to really get away. And Edmonton, because of all the special teams work, I just felt like they really never got to their game. And over time, started to get frustrated. If you look at the stat line, you would think it was a pretty evenly played game. And generally speaking, it kind of was in some ways, but it really wasn't overall. Florida really dominated a lot of aspects of that game, and just Edmonton never got to their play at all. And by the third period, there was a fight after, well, not really a full-fledged fight, but scrum after scrum after scrum. They just start tossing people out, and it just got embarrassing to the point where the Oilers were just trying to send a message, trying to put some pushback, trying to put some fight. I was like, you know what, team like Florida, unfortunately, you're not going to intimidate them. That's just the way they're built. They like that rough stuff. If anything, you might wake them up more. So we'll see. Edmonton absolutely needs a massive response in Game 4. They have to decide if they're going to stick with Stuart Skinner. He did get the yank in the third period for Pickard, more than anything to give him a rest. To be honest, I would not put that loss at Skinner's feet. Would there maybe be 1 or 2 that he could have had? Sure. But you know what? And really looking at the whole game, it wasn't the difference maker at all. The difference maker was his team in front of him has not been good enough. And the Edmonton D especially hasn't been good enough. And I'm surprised in the skate today that they didn't have any additional changes to their D. They changed some of the pairings up for Game 3, and it got worse. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. But Edmonton needs a massive response, and they'll have a couple extra days to do it. They don't play Game 4 until Thursday night. Like I said, from that game last night as well, player safety did announce today that they've handed out some fines. Unfortunately, they both go to the Oilers, and they both go to the same player. Defenseman Jake Walman's fined essentially $10,000. One fine for $5,000 is for roughing, and one is for unsportsmanlike conduct. The roughing one came from I think it was Klingberg, his D partner, had Matthew Tkachuk, had his arms wrapped up, and he was kind of taking some freewheel shots to the face when he couldn't defend himself. And the second one, he was on the bench yapping at the Panthers and was squirting water from his water bottle, or I'm not sure if it's actually water, body armor, or whatever it was. Either way, squirting his water bottle at the Florida bench. So I was like, really? It's like, I get it. Are they things that you could technically pick on and crack down? Sure. But with all the stuff you let go in the playoffs, I was just a little surprised that's what they decide to kind of pick on. It's like, well, why was he squirting water balls? Well, everybody knows that cats don't like water, right? So that's probably what he was thinking in that regard. As I mentioned, a big update today on the 2018 World Junior Championship team that has 5 players facing trial for assault. Of course, this has been a long ongoing situation. The story first came to light a few years ago. It took a long time for investigation to be complete, long time for charges to be laid, long time for trial to start, and now the trial has come to a close. All of the testimony has been given. All the closing arguments were wrapped up today. So the trial essentially is over. Now we wait for the judge to land her verdict. Of course, remember, this trial started as a judge and jury trial. The jury was redone on a couple of occasions and eventually dismissed completely. They called a mistrial and restarted one time because they were, I guess, concerned that this jury, or any jury, a couple of juries that they put together, were able to kind of do their jobs properly. So this is going to be decision rendered strictly by judge. She has set a date of July 24th at, I believe, I'm not mistaken, I think it was 10 a.m. Eastern time in London court to announce the verdict. If they are found guilty, because there's all 5 of them are facing charges. It's not necessarily going to be one verdict across the board. They'll have to obviously announce a verdict in all charges, right? And if any of them are found guilty, then I would assume that they'll have like a sentencing hearing or whatever. That'll come later. But July 24th will be the big day when we find out if any of these 5 players will be facing jail time, if they will be found guilty, or if they will be found innocent. Of course, the defense lawyers tried to paint, did a lot of victim blaming and trying to paint, the picture in favor of their clients, of course, and the prosecution trying to do the opposite. So we've heard a bunch of players that were not faced any charges, that were not accused of any wrongdoing, testified in this trial, and I'm sure that was. A lot of that's been going on. We've heard lots of updates, and it's been such a long stretch. It's over now, and now we wait. July 24th will be the key date to watch for. Another big piece of news today, we got the confirmation that Lane Hutson is the Calder Trophy winner. Of course, as we know, the NHL continues to roll out what they're referring to as these viral moments, trying to set up video coverage of surprise visits to announce players as winners of these awards. Lane Hutson essentially was tricked by his family to go out for a big celebration, being told that it was a celebration of him being a finalist, but it was actually him winning the award. They had Phil Pritchard, the keeper of the cup, deliver the Calder Trophy to them. So obviously Hutson had a phenomenal season. We know that he won, and he won by a pretty wide margin at that. Dustin Wolf was second in voting. Macklin Celebrini, last year's number 1 overall selection, was third. Matvei Michkov was fourth in voting, and Cutter Gauthier of the Anaheim Ducks came in fifth. So obviously a pretty solid rookie class. A lot of those guys and any other year probably could have won. A lot of them had good enough seasons to win in most years that we've seen in the last 10, 15, 20 years. But unfortunately, it was a really deep group of rookies this past year. And I think we could be facing another deep group next year as well. So some of these guys are going to have a tough lots of competition to win this award. Signing in Calgary today, 6'8" winger Adam Klapka, who had a strong finish to the season for Calgary, certainly came on strong near the end, and certainly looked like he could be a player for them longer term. Has signed a 2-year contract extension at $1.25 million. So Klapka will remain in the Flames organization with a new deal for a couple of seasons there. We'll start with some UFA chatter, and then we'll get into some trade chatter. UFA front with the Ottawa Senators. They had a season ticket holder event tonight. And they did confirm as well that there was a third jersey coming for the Sens for next season. It is a red-based jersey. There was a leak, if you've seen it on social media back a few months ago. It was pretty, I'm not sure if it's exact to that leak, but pretty darn close. So they did confirm that, and they also where some people were hoping and wondering maybe if they might announce a Claude Giroux contract extension, but unfortunately that was not the case. They did talk about Giroux. I'm not sure if it was a question or they made a point of bringing it up, but they did say that they had a lot of good discussions and that the negotiations continue and that they definitely want to get him signed here, and they're still working away at it. The belief was, we've heard other reports from, I think it was, I can't remember if it was Bruce Garriock or there was another one of the Ottawa reporters today, said that during the draft combine in Buffalo that they did have a face-to-face, some talks, negotiations with Giroux's agent, which I believe was Pat Brisson, and they did make a one-year offer, but it wasn't accepted. Now, it doesn't mean that he won't do a one-year deal, because the whole point of doing a one-year deal would be to give him a lower salary, but give him a lot of extra bonus opportunities. So, like, for example, it might make a $3 million salary, but he might be able to earn up to $5 million or $5.5 million or something along those lines with a bunch of extra bonus incentive structures in there. And that bonus structure will probably take a lot longer to kind of hammer out an agreement to. So at this point, I don't think Sens fans have anything to be worried about. Giroux, definitely, he's still been using the Canadian Tire Center. I know I saw videos of him playing pickleball there with his son the other day, training and stuff. So, like, there's still very much a great relationship and a mutual sentiment to get this done, but they still not far enough along through the process yet to say for sure that it is done and that it's a done deal or anything like that. We also learned with the Senators as well that there is mutual interest with UFA forward Adam Gaudette to possibly bring him back. Of course, Gaudette had a breakout season in Ottawa after a lot of years bouncing around the NHL. He put together a longer campaign, more games, more minutes played, and hit a career high in goals. And I think he's trying to cash in on that, and rightfully so. Obviously, he knows that he had a great fit with the Senators, and he's probably sees sometimes these players, they're in a tough spot. They know if they leave, they might not find the fit and everything to do what they did all over again, and it might not be wise. Sometimes it's not all about the money. Sometimes you're better off to take a little less and stay put and have more success so you can extend your career, and you'll get more money in the long run by being in a better situation. But it's kind of difficult to say right now how things go, but there's definitely interest. It really boils down to what other teams throw at them. I don't know that they're going to get Gaudette signed ahead of July 1. But there's definitely interest to bring him back if they can work it out, and they're still negotiating on that. Now in Toronto, when it comes to veteran forward Max Pacioretty, there is reports today indicating that he's leaning towards playing next year and that there is mutual interest between him and the Maple Leafs to get another probably 1-year contract done. I know at the end of season, when Pacioretty spoke to the media, he did say he wasn't sure what his plans were going to be just yet, that obviously his whole family didn't go to Toronto, so he spent a lot of time away from them this past season and really wasn't sure if he's going to keep playing, or if so, what was best for him and his family and all that. So it sounds like that's the direction that they'd like to have him back, and he's trending towards returning. So we will see what things bring, but don't be shocked if we see another short-term deal between the Toronto Maple Leafs and Max Pacioretty. Now, the big UFA and the Maple Leafs, of course, or one of them is Mitch Marner. We're still hearing a lot about John Tavares as well, although that's a little quieter. Tavares, the belief is that he's very, very, very likely going to be a Maple Leaf, and expect a unique, complex type of contract ironed out, most likely at least, between him and Toronto. Probably something similar to what they did with Chris Tanev. Some people don't like that structure. I think it's borderline cap circumvention, but ultimately the league's approved these contracts so far, so can't really call it that right now, but it could very well be a longer-term deal at a low AAV, so he still gets his money, but it's over a longer period of time, or maybe there's deferred money or something along those lines. So just expect that Tavares most likely stays, but it may not be as simple as saying, 2 years, $5 million or something like that. It could very well be one of those kind of unique, complex contracts where it gets the AAV as low as possible, but also allows Tavares to make more money longer term to give him that extra security that he's probably looking for. And of course, the bigger scenario in Toronto on the UFA side is Marner, because we know there's a much greater chance of him leaving. A bunch of updates here today. I know James Myrtle had a bunch. He said that he believes that Marner actually has Florida pretty high on his list of places he'd like to go. Now, of course, the Florida Panthers don't have a lot of cap space. When you think about what they have internally to do, they would have to decide to cut ties with multiple players who's been through 2 to 3 Stanley Cup final appearances, at least one Stanley Cup, maybe a second if they hold off Edmonton here in this final. And they may not want to do that. As much as he'd probably love to go there, and they would have some degree of interest, I'm sure, as most teams would. But how challenging would that be? Like, for example, everybody kind of believes that it's probably a forgiven thing that Bennett's going to stay in Florida. Most people don't think Sam Bennett's making it to July 1, that he's going to sign a deal with the Panthers. And as much as everybody likes to say that his value keeps going up and up and up and up and up, I don't know that he's leaving. Like, I think the fit there is too good for him. It's too perfect of a scenario. You get the no state tax, which helps a little bit too. And to be honest, don't be shocked if Bennett signs for less money than you might think. Reinhart did it too. I mean, Reinhart was coming off a 60-goal season and could have gotten a lot more, and he didn't because he loves the fit and the team and everything that goes with it. Maybe Bennett gets like an 8x8 or something like that. Now, they also have to sign Ekblad, or they don't have to, but it's either you sign Ekblad or you replace him, and then you get Marchand, who they'd like to keep. But Marchand is another player that's believed to be searching for, money. Like, he wants to cash out his money. He was underpaid on his last deal, and that's why a lot of people think that maybe the Leafs might be a player for him, because not only could they offer him a decent salary, but being in a market like Toronto, he could probably make a lot of extra money on off-ice endorsements, more than a lot of other markets. So, there's that possibility. But Marner has Florida high on his radar here, but when it comes, the decisions have to be made on other guys like Bennett and Marchand and Ekblad, and it's hard to say if there's going to be an opportunity for that. So the belief is, Myrtle said he's still putting his money on Vegas being the most likely landing spot. As I mentioned yesterday, Vegas has tried to trade for Marner multiple times. We've heard about multiple trades that they might be working on now to make some space, and I honestly think if I had to place a bet today on him leaving the Leafs, where's he going to go, I probably would pick Vegas. Now, Jeff Merrick today, he said he feels, now not necessarily what's going to happen, but what he thinks is the best fit is Carolina. I don't agree with that. I mean, I do think Carolina needs another strong offensive player, but look at what they lost and how they lost to the Florida Panthers. They do have a strong forechecking team, but do they really want to add another player who's like Marner, or they want another like bigger, stronger, more physical kind of player who can give you some offense? I just don't know that he's the type of player that they want. I mean, look when they went to get Rantanen, right? I mean, Rantanen and Marner they might give you similar offensive numbers, but they're nothing alike as far as their size, their stature, and how they play. So to me, they traded for Rantanen and it didn't work out. I don't see them pivoting to Marner as a, I guess they were looking to make that trade. So I know that they were interested, but now that that may not have been a long-term fit. Doesn't mean that they would have re-signed him either, right? So hard to say what happens. I mean, I do believe Carolina will be involved. I'm just not convinced that he's the best fit for them. And I think if it boils down to it, that he's probably going to pick a team like Vegas, or if Florida decided that, we really want him and we're going to clear some money out, then yeah, I think he would probably put that right at the top of his list too. But I think he's going to go to one of those top teams. I think he wants to win. I think he recognizes that, maybe what he needs to be surrounded by to have a chance to do that. And that's probably what we're going to see. So at least that's the latest on the Marner saga on the UFA front. Speaking of Vegas, we'll switch there. I know Friedman on his podcast today was talking about Vegas trade rumors, talking about how there's been a lot of talk about William Karlsson's name being out there. And based on what he's been told and done some digging around the league, he's not 100% convinced that Vegas is moving William Karlsson. He said that some people have told him that they don't think he's available, but maybe that they've had conversations with teams about him that he hasn't touched base with yet, and maybe there's something that he hasn't heard. But generally speaking, he thinks that Karlsson may not necessarily be on the block. But if if a lot of people are right and that Vegas is going to be the player for Marner, they're going to have to shed some money here. So I don't know how they go about things. Now, I know there's uncertainty with Alex Pietrangelo's health. Is there something maybe more there that they that they know that we don't, I don't know, right? So I do expect Vegas to make some moves of some sort, though. But one of the bigger ones that they are linked to, and we've heard from multiple insiders, and it's a definitely legit thing, is the fact that Vegas is looking to trade defenseman Nicholas Hague. So Nick Hague is available, and a lot of talk about Montreal. Now, Montreal media talking about what he could bring to this team. And essentially, it sounds like to me that they, with losing David Savard to retirement, is they're looking at him to be that type of defenseman that Savard was and be like a Savard replacement, obviously much younger. Some wondering if either the Vegas trade price is going to be Arber Xhekaj, because obviously he will come in probably cheaper contract than what Hague's going to get paid. And, he's also, bigger, strong, physical defenseman, less experience, but, would that be the asking price? Is Hague for Xhekaj? I don't know. Or the other thought is, if they get Hague, would they? If they don't send Xhekaj to Vegas, are they going to end up trading him anyway? Now, there was a lot of people last year that thought Xhekaj's time is probably going to run out with Montreal in the near future. We saw how Marty St. Louis didn't completely trust him in the playoffs. He had times, obviously, where his game is still growing and developing, and at times has lost trust of the coach. They have a lot of D in Montreal. So if they bring in another, guy like Hague who can give you a similar style of game, but maybe a little bit better defensive play, are they going to want Xhekaj there too? It just kind of creates some questions around his future with the club. So we'll have to wait and see if this trade goes down. Now, Pittsburgh and Philly were also linked to Hague, and I wouldn't be surprised if others jump in the mix there as well. But that's the feeling around Montreal media, is if I think a lot of people are quite okay with Hague being brought in, but is it going to cost you Xhekaj either in that trade or cause them to move Xhekaj separately? Let me know what you think on that front. Is he going to be what it's going to cost them to get Hague? In Buffalo, I know we've heard a bunch of names being out there. A couple of names that we haven't heard as much, one being Alex Tuch, of course, who I know when he first arrived there was quite thrilled to be there, his hometown team. He's coming up for contract extension. He's on a pretty sweet deal, making under $5 million, and he's going to be looking for a hefty raise. And there's some wondering that that he might not get that money from Buffalo and could end up being traded. So essentially, the belief is that I would expect the Sabres to make a decision on, are they comfortable going on a big long-term extension with Tuch or not? And if the answer is we don't think so, at least not for what he's going to want to get paid, then maybe he could become a trade piece as well. And the other thing that we had heard here in recent days was that before the Senators traded Josh Norris to Buffalo, apparently he was close to going to Vancouver. The Canucks really liked Josh Norris as well. Darren Dreger was saying that he thought there was close, and he said, I'm not sure it was that close, to be honest, but he says he thinks they were close to trading him to Vancouver for Philip Hedl and a pick. I say, well, if it better have been a first-round pick, because why would they trade Norris for Hedl? Like that, from Ottawa's perspective, I'm sorry, that doesn't make any sense. Norris is way better than Hedl, and if you're trading Norris, a lot of that from Ottawa's perspective was they were really concerned about the fact that he was, dealt with multiple shoulder surgeries and he's hurt frequently. So they were looking to get another centerman who could be a little more reliable, a little bit more durable, maybe a little bigger, play a little different style. Hedl's not that guy. He's got bad concussion history. They could be trading one, injury situation for another. So I can understand why Vancouver would offer that, but that made no sense to Ottawa. So obviously they didn't do it. But the whole point of that, a big part of that, would have been for Quinn Hughes. Josh Norris and Quinn Hughes are basically best friends, or that term might be used a little loosely, but they are very close. And we know that the Canucks are all about making Quinn happy right now and trying to get him to stay when his contract comes up, and bringing Josh out there would be a huge help to doing that. So, I wonder, I don't think Josh Norris is happy in Buffalo. I mean, looking at him playing for the Sabres after he got traded, and I know he was probably shell-shocked, but just didn't seem like he was really into it at all. Ended up sitting out for an injury that he's had when he was in Ottawa, and then sat out the rest of the year. I just don't know that he really wants to be there. That's just a personal gut feeling of mine. So I just kind of wonder if Vancouver might revisit that and see if Norris would be something that they'd want to reacquire. So we'll see on that front. And on Jason Robertson, a couple of insiders, including Friedman and Frank Saravalli, both weighing in today that there's definitely smoke when it comes to Robertson. His name is definitely out there. I know some people find it hard to believe why they'd want to trade Robertson, and I think they're exploring a bunch of things here, trying to change the team. After 3 consecutive conference final losses, I think they're analyzing on how do we make this team better? How do we make it different? They don't have very much cap space. They've only got $5 million, and they've got some key players that are UFAs like Duchesne and Ben and Granlund. And I know that after they acquired Granlund earlier in the year, they definitely would like to keep him. So they're trying to find cap space. Robertson had just a wild season last year. It was really inconsistent. Like, he was non-existent. Like, he was a really slow start. And then when he got left off of the four-nation team for Team USA, it seemed like he really, which is a lot of players were like that. He ended up really taking off after, finished really strong, but then had a really quiet playoff. So I don't think it's that they don't like the player anymore, but I just think they wonder, he's a great asset with a good value, and he's young and he's accomplished a decent amount. Is it maybe, an idea to gain other assets and change the dynamic of the team? I mean, keeping Granlund and trading Robertson seems nuts to many, and I understand why. But it just seems like that's where things are at. I mean, unless, of course, like Friedman mentioned, obviously they're going to try to move contracts like Dumba and probably Lyubushkin as well. But if they fail to do so, then, maybe this is something that they're going to do. But he's definitely out there for sure. For anybody doubting the fact that Robertson's name is out there legitimately in the rumor mill and that they are exploring conversations around what potential trades might look like, it's definitely something that is happening. Whether or not they proceed with it will depend on what they find for deals, and we'll have to wait and see what happens. But that is all your news and updates for tonight. Let me know your thoughts on everything discussed here today down in the comments below, and we'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.